Hi everybody, this is radio talk show host Deanne Burley on deception allowed in our courts and why. I'm on Blog Talk Radio and truthradio.com, and look for the Deanne Burley Show. It comes on at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. Call-in line is 718-508-9513. We're on tonight on Saturday at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. Call me at 630-683-7199 or email me at dane.b@gmail.com. My issue is with the deception allowed in our courts today and why. I am appalled to what is going on legally within our legal system. I'm appalled because my good friend Sherman Skolnick basically put his whole life at risk to fight Gravelord in the Illinois courts. Gravelord was a corruption of judges and lawyers working together hand in hand and basically selling off people's cases in the court system. Today, is it better? No, it's a hell of a lot worse than it was before. The reason I'm saying is this, is the courts and the judges know that there is a considerable amount of mortgage fraud in this country. They know it. They know that there was deceptive practices. They know the law. They have to know the law. They're lawyers and they're now judges. And they sit in the power of your home going into a situation that you are going to be on the street because of illegal operations that was done through the coercion of people being able to sign documentation or didn't sign documentation that put them into a mortgage fraud situation. Case in point, here's one. I had seen during the course, just before 9/11 and 1990s and 80s and things, how the secondary market was throwing as much paperwork as they could into the banking system. The 1003s, which was the mortgage applications, were flowing like nobody else's business because the secondary loan market was opening the door to people that had little credit, bad credit. It gave them a chance to get a home with higher interest rates. While a traditional person could go into the bank and get a loan for maybe 2-3% interest, other people were paying anywhere from 10%, 13% on interest rates on their homes. Now again, they were doing that because it was giving them an opportunity because they were high-risk lenders, meaning that they would get foreclosed on more quicker than the A paper. But this B paper, it was still okay with the banks, but the C and D paper, well, in consideration of how people were paying their bills, the banks did not want to take that risk. So it opened the door to a quagmire of fraud and deception. Because what happened was a lot of these major players felt that they could move all of this paper they were receiving, which was actually fiduciary notes they looked at it as, and that's where the credit default swaps came in. They looked at it as a fiduciary note that they could trade on the stock market and make money and transfer back. So then a bunch of people started this wholesale thing of wholesaling your paper. You would get a loan at this mortgage company. The mortgage company had a pipeline, but they also had a way and means to finance your home loan. Well, they were holding on so much paper that they started selling it off, selling it to other mortgage companies that held your paper. And so it went from one hand to the next, and the money was going back and forth. Loan officers were making huge amounts of money, but the loan officers didn't really know what was going on. They just went by the information that was provided to them in regards to these grids of how these loans are supposed to happen. So, for instance, get a single-family home, and it was you and a wife and a small child, and they figure out on the 1003 all of your assets, all of your liabilities, and they would give a quick synopsis of what it was going to be to get your loan done. So what happened was it started getting crazy. People wanted to get these loans done because they were making a lot of money. So then they started changing information on these loans, using whiteout and changing people's names and doing things you would not believe that didn't need to be done, creating huge amounts of monstrous levels of fraud on one end. And then the banks were trading it on the other end on the stock market. So everybody was making huge amounts of money. Now, the thing they have not talked about is the appraisal scam. Appraisers were going out, and they wouldn't even go in the house. They were writing numbers out outside the street. They say, oh, okay, this is what this number's going to be. Or somebody would call them up and say, can you get this house appraised at this number? And they would write the numbers, send it in. Now, again, all of this was based on fraud, period. So when the house of cards started falling down, people started going out after aspects of the fraud. There were numbers of them that were involved. There was first Ameriquest was taken into court numerous times, and then there was the big one. Boy, I can't think of the name of it. It'll come to me later. But they went in and out of court, and they settled, and they came back, and the court cases were class action lawsuits were filed, individual lawsuits were filed. Many of them were won against these entities, and there were more and more of them adding on every single day. The caseloads in Illinois were outstanding for the Office of Banks and Real Estate. They only had 3 individuals that were working on investigating all this mortgage fraud. And again, nobody was being diligent in doing anything about it. So they let the fraudster go on and on and on. You could report it to the police, you could report it to the Attorney General's office, you could report it to the Better Business Bureau, and they would take the information, document it, but nobody seemed to move to do anything to prevent what was going on. Because everybody had some hands in on the actual fraud. So now, today, 2013, people are being tossed out in the street because of a major fraud that was going on. The Merse system, the MERS system, was fraudulent. Why? Because the information was outdated, wasn't updated, and went to the courts, and that was what the judges would look at to determine if you had actual deed or the party taking you to court had the actual deed on the property. It was tainted. So the person taking you to court took you to court with documentation stating they owned something they didn't own. So that's a fraud on the court, easily. Now, why are the courts allowing fraud on the court? I don't know. I'm just asking this question. If you go into the clerk's office of a court and you file documents, you're saying that the information I'm filing is truth and fact. And the information that you're filing on that document states that you are filing because you have some type of fiduciary right to a property. If you're not on the deed, then how can you file something that you don't own? Many of these people that are bringing you to court don't own your property. They don't have a deed. It's not rocket science. So why is it the court is allowing a fraud on the court to be heard in the court in the first place? And they argue the case. Now, what they do is they come in on a summary judgment. Now, when they come in on a summary judgment, that means that they have already had enough evidence supportive of the actual document that you signed that states that you had a loan with them and that you owed X amount of dollars and you failed to pay, or this happened and that happened, and therefore they have the right to judgment against you. So there's no reason that the court needs to talk to you, rule on anything. It's immediate that you're guilty and you're going to lose your home. The only problem is if they didn't have ownership right, how could they take you to court in the first place? And not one of the judges and not one of the prosecutors in any of the states are going after this. But then again, you have these class action lawsuits that are going on continuously against the same people that you have loans with that are not being stated in your court case. Why? I'm just asking a question, why? Now, if they state that in your court case and they bring it up, is the judge still going to not allow that information? And if he is not allowing that information, my question is that a fraud on the court? And is he allowing a fraud on the court, or she? I just want your opinion of this. I'm not stating this as a lawyer, but I'm just saying as an observer. If somebody comes into court and they file documentation and they have no legal right to file that because they have no legal claim to you in any type of way, it's a fraud on the court. They're lying, saying that I have something I don't have. And the court is taking it in and stamping it as a recognized document, and then it's passed on into a lawsuit form, and then you go to court and you lose your home on a fraud. Now, this happens many, many times. Now, the people that are already out in the street, they've lost their homes, and it's already been considered a fraud. But they're saying there's no way that you can go back, do anything to change this. But I'm of opinion that there is. And that's why I'm stating this, that the deception that is going on with people in regards to their homes and foreclosures is just outrageous. This deception that's being allowed in the court is outrageous. The changing of information. The Merse system knowingly has been filed in federal court as being a fraud. Therefore, the information that was in that record was used as a basis for you to be removed from your house. So therefore, that's new evidence. So why is it that nobody is using that, and why are you still being kicked out of your homes? I don't understand this, and I would like somebody that is listening to explain why this is being allowed and people are still being kicked out of their houses when there is fraud on the court, fraud in the record, fraud going on left and right. Now, Dr. Cotoro is in New York City. He's been dealing with the fraud. He's a friend of my show. There's Jack Wright that's been dealing with this mortgage issue for his home in Texas, where he had letters showing blatant fraud and admission of fraud in his court case by folks at EMC. His house was taken from him on Christmas Day after he battled it out for 10 years, folks. 10 years. He had already been at the sheriff's sale level, and he was able to stay in his house almost 10 years. So there's a way, a means of fighting it. But more people need to know more about this fraud, because the fraud is going on as we speak, and it won't stop until we recognize that the system itself is allowing a fraud, and there is nobody interjecting to stop it. And if you have no law enforcement to stop that fraud, then what is it that we need to do? Maybe look at our legislators and go to them and put into law a way to have the courts act to protect the rights of citizens. Because again, if somebody takes you to court and has no right to take you to court, then why is it being heard in the first place? This is DM Burley, talk show host. My show is on Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Central Time. And then on Saturday, 9 p.m. Central Time. Call-in number is 718-508-9513. You can hear the show there. I'm also on iTunes. This is broadcast through YouTube, through all social networks, in fact. And I, again, state to you, deception is being allowed in courts. And my question to you is why? Thank you very much.